The sound of tearing fabric cut through the noise of the bar so sharply that every conversation stopped at once. A waitress stumbled backward, clutching the front of her uniform, while a biker twice her size stood frozen beside her. 1 second earlier, people had been laughing over drinks. The next, nobody moved. And then everyone saw what had been hidden beneath her shirt. Before I tell you what happened that night, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments. And if you enjoy emotional stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary moments, stick around until the end. This one took a turn nobody in that bar ever forgot. The waitress's name was Tessa Brooks. At 27, she worked double shifts at a roadside bar outside Amarillo, Texas, called Rusty's Junction. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough to keep her small apartment and help cover medical bills that never seemed to end. Most customers knew her as the smiling waitress who remembered everyone's coffee order and somehow stayed kind even during the busiest nights. What they didn't know was that Tessa lived almost entirely in long sleeves. Even during summer. Even when the Texas heat felt unbearable. People asked about it occasionally, but she always laughed it off and changed the subject. That Friday night, Rusty's Junction was packed with bikers passing through town on a charity ride. Most of them were respectful. Loud, but respectful. One man wasn't. His name was Wade. He had arrived already irritated, already drinking, and already looking for an argument. Tessa had dealt with customers like him before. She kept her voice calm. "Can I get you anything else?" "Yeah," Wade said. A smile that isn't fake. A few people nearby exchanged uncomfortable looks. Tessa ignored the comment and walked away. For the next hour, Wade found little ways to cause problems. Complaints about food. Complaints about service. Complaints about things that didn't exist. The bar owner, Rusty, was preparing to ask him to leave. Then everything happened at once. Tessa was carrying a tray through a crowded aisle when Wade suddenly stood up. Whether he meant to grab her arm or stop her path, nobody knew for sure. His heavy ring caught the sleeve of her uniform. The fabric ripped. Hard. The tear ran from her shoulder almost to her elbow. The tray crashed to the floor. Glasses shattered. And Tessa's face turned completely white. For a moment, nobody understood why. Then they saw her arm. Covering nearly the entire length of it was a faded tattoo. Not a decorative tattoo. A child's drawing. Simple stick figures holding hands beneath a crooked yellow sun. Above it were the words, "Daddy, don't forget me." The entire bar fell silent. Tessa immediately tried to pull the torn fabric closed. Too late. People had already seen. Wade, who had been ready with another sarcastic comment, stared at the tattoo without speaking. The anger drained from his face. Rusty stepped forward. "Tessa." But she shook her head. "No." Her voice cracked. For years she had hidden that tattoo from strangers. Not because she was ashamed of it. Because she couldn't bear the questions. Yet standing there in complete silence, surrounded by dozens of staring faces, she seemed to realize there was nowhere left to hide. One of the older bikers spoke softly. "Who drew it?" Tessa looked down at her arm. "My daughter." Nobody said a word. The room seemed to shrink around her. She was 6. The silence grew heavier. Her name was Emma. A few customers lowered their eyes. Tessa took a shaky breath. 10 years ago, a drunk driver ran a red light. The words came slowly. Carefully. As if she had carried them alone for too long. My husband died instantly. Emma survived for 2 days. Someone near the back quietly set down their drink. Tessa touched the faded tattoo. The last picture she ever gave me looked exactly like this. The little stick figures. The crooked sun. The uneven handwriting. "Daddy, don't forget me." The entire bar felt different now.
As though every person present suddenly understood why she wore long sleeves in July.
Why her smile sometimes looked tired. Why there was sadness behind her eyes.
Then came the moment nobody expected.
Wade sat down heavily. His face had lost all color. He looked like a man who had seen a ghost.
"Tessa,"
he whispered.
She looked up.
His hands were trembling.
"What?" she asked quietly.
Wade swallowed. "My daughter used to draw sons like that." The room remained silent. He stared at the tattoo. Then at the floor. Then back at her.
"My little girl died 11 years ago." Nobody moved. Nobody interrupted. For the first time all night, Wade sounded completely different. No arrogance. No anger. No alcohol-fueled bravado. Just grief. Raw and exhausted. "I haven't talked about her in years." Tessa stood frozen.
Wade rubbed his eyes.
"Every year gets worse."
His voice broke.
"I kept thinking it would get easier."
The confession seemed to surprise even him. The entire room watched two strangers standing on opposite sides of a painful memory neither had chosen. Then something remarkable happened. Tessa walked toward him.
Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just quietly.
She placed the broken tray on a nearby table and sat across from him.
For several seconds neither spoke. Finally, Tessa said the simplest thing imaginable. "It doesn't get easier." Wade nodded. Tears appeared before he could hide them. "It doesn't." "No."
The biker who had spent hours making everyone's night miserable suddenly looked less like a troublemaker and more like a father carrying an invisible weight.
The room seemed to exhale. One by one, conversations began. Not loud conversations. Gentle ones. People sharing stories. Pictures of loved ones. Memories. Losses. Regrets.
The atmosphere changed so completely that it felt impossible to believe it was the same bar.
Before leaving, Wade approached Tessa. "I owe you an apology."
"You do," she answered.
A tiny smile appeared. The first real smile of the night. He nodded.
"I'll spend the rest of my life regretting what happened to your shirt."
Tessa looked at the torn sleeve. Then laughed softly. "Honestly, it's probably the oldest uniform I own."
A few nearby customers chuckled.
The tension finally broke.
The next morning, Tessa arrived for her shift expecting an ordinary day. Instead, she found a package waiting by the door.
Inside were 6 new uniforms. Folded neatly. No note. Just a receipt. Paid in full. Rusty smiled. The biker group dropped them off before sunrise.
Tessa ran her fingers across the fabric.
Then she noticed something tucked beneath the receipt. A small drawing. Stick figures holding hands beneath a crooked sun. No signature. None was needed.
10 years after losing her daughter, Tessa discovered something she hadn't expected to find in a crowded roadside bar.
Not healing. Not closure.
Those words never felt quite right. What she found was recognition. The quiet understanding that grief speaks many languages, wears many faces, and sometimes arrives wearing a leather jacket. And every time she wore one of those new uniforms, she kept the little drawing folded in her pocket. A reminder that even the most painful scars can connect people in ways they never imagine.
If you had been in Tessa's place that night, what would you have done?
Share your thoughts in the comments, and if stories like this remind you of the power of compassion and understanding, subscribe to Kindness Journey for more emotional human stories.